This is the Above Average Podcast, and you are listening because you want an above average life.
Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the Above Average Podcast, the podcast where we talk to above average people about their above average lives. Now, this is a special one today because my guest today has driven over 6 hours. 6 hours?
6 hours.
No, I'm just kidding. Not just for this, but he's up here in the north. Where have you actually come from?
Yeovil, Southwest, Somerset.
Nice, very nice. So please welcome to the show, Harry Purdy. How are you doing, mate?
I'm really good, thank you. I'm really excited. A little bit nervous, but excited for this, man, yeah.
So this is your first in-person podcast, right?
First in-person experience on the mic, yeah,
nice,
for sure.
Nice. Have you done ones like for other people before? Because I know you're a podcaster yourself. Have you done ones like, have you been on other people's shows before?
I've been on other people's shows before, but again, just all online. So this is an absolute first tick in the box.
How do you feel about being in like a studio? I'd say it's a studio. It's a loft, but how do you feel? How do you feel about being in like a studio? Does it feel cool?
It's the best loft studio I've ever been in. So yeah.
I'm gonna take it, man. I'm gonna take it, mate. So today we're talking all things about Harry's life. So I want to take it back to, I think it was, if I got my research correct, around 2014, 15, sort of beginning of your weight loss journey, I would say.
Yeah, man.
Correct?
Yeah. It was 2014-15 football season. I remember it because at the time I was a football coach. I was a football coach for 7 years.
Wow. And
over that 7 years, I went from, at the start of being a football coach, being an 18-year-old, being fit and healthy, to at the end of, well, not even the end really, but in the middle, kind of towards the end, becoming incredibly unhealthy and not playing the game that I loved. Really fond memories though. But one of the story that I always fall back on was my team were doing really good. Montacute Football Club. We won the treble in 2015, Division 1 treble from our area. And one of the cup finals, I was picking the team as manager. And it was a toss-up between myself and a couple of other players for who was going to get into the squad for the cup final.
Nice.
And self-aware as I was at the time, I knew that I wasn't fit. I probably wouldn't impact the cup final very well. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, geez, how has this situation occurred?
Yeah.
I was probably 21, 22 stone at the time. I could still play, just couldn't run. I could still kick a ball. Like everyone has always said when I was a big lad, great feet, but just not fit enough. Like really technical player. So the story was, I woke up on the morning of the cup final, really excited, but also with that sense of, like, my family were going to be there watching, but I wasn't involved in playing. I was just the game day manager, which is fine, and I like thrived off of being the manager. But of course, there was that part of me that was like, this isn't right. So I got up out of bed at like 7 a.m. So I was so excited and just went for I was going to do a mile run to start this journey of losing weight, and I got, I reckon, 0.6 miles into the run, and I just couldn't do it. And I don't know if it was that run or not, but I specifically remember as well running up like a little incline of this route that I used to run. It was only a mile. This was right at the start of when I started losing weight.
Yeah.
And somebody bibbed their horn, and it was like a van with 2 lads in it, and they were laughing at me. And it was like one of those moments where I thought, fuck you. You're allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah, fucking swear all you fucking want, man.
I'm going to prove you 2 wrong, that this isn't me. Like, the me that I wanted to be is who I am now, really, with a few things. So, yeah, that was the story of the start of the weight loss journey.
It's interesting that you didn't let yourself get picked for management, is that correct? Like, you felt something, you weren't right for that role, is that?
So, no, I was the manager of the team.
Yeah.
But it was, I didn't pick myself to play in the cup final.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so there were 16 players in the squad, and there were 18 available, including myself.
What's interesting about that is why do you think you let yourself get into that way? Because obviously you were playing beforehand, you were still playing while you went on that sort of quote-unquote downward spiral, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
So what kind of happened with that? Why did you go so far off the deep end almost?
Without putting too much perspective and blame on the situation, when I was at college, I was quite fit. I say quite fit and playing good football.
Yeah.
I really supported very well by a coach called Andy Mitchell, who was probably the only football coach in my life that saw a player in me and picked up on all my best traits and made me into a good footballer. But at the same time, when I left college, my parents got divorced. I got a job at Asda and just lacked a little bit of drive and desire when I left college. I think I was blaming people for things, got lazy, was too invested in gaming. Football Manager was like my nemesis back in the day. Still is at times now.
Nice.
Can lose myself in that for a while. But I remember my job role at Asda was, I started on fruit and veg, which was pretty active, let's just say. But there was always a fry-up available in the morning. There was always snacks in the canteen available. And without really realising it, like I went from this 18-year-old who'd left college, was in a decent physical place, to being 21. And honestly, I could see, even if I look back at photos now, it was, the weight gain was that quick that I'd almost look like I'd been inhaled with like something that
like someone would pump up your arse and done that.
Honestly, yeah. Like my body didn't even react. And one of the biggest things that I remember in my brain as well is my dad has always been like, he's an inspiration to me in his own ways, but he was always quite honest with, he would always be the person, if we were out walking or doing a bit of exercise, it's all about your mindset, like mind over matter, all that sort of thing. But when I came downstairs once in a shirt to go out, he went, "Blimey, Harry, you've put on weight." And I reacted so badly. And
did you shout at him, or were you just like, you
I
know?
think I probably told him to shove it.
Yeah.
But really, that was the wake-up call. If I had the mindset I've got now, that would have been the wake-up call that I'd have needed. I'd have gone, fair play, fair point, you're probably right. But at the time, ego, young, didn't really care, was more interested in going out on the beers than listening to what my dad had to say, even though his comment only had my best interest at heart. He could just see his son getting fat and overweight and unhealthy. So could you blame him for saying what he said? Not really. He didn't exactly call me fat or unhealthy. He just said, "You're putting on weight." Yeah. And of course, I chucked it back in his face and carried on to the point where it took me to 2015 to then realise, come on, Harry, it's time to do something about it now.
Nice. Are your parents, are they like larger framed at all?
So like they're not the skinniest of people. I think if I look back at photos of me growing up with dad, he's always been somebody that's got fit, then like put a bit of weight on. The same with my mum as well. Like she'd openly admit to anybody that she's struggled. She's gone, this is one of the reasons why I've got such a hatred towards like the Cambridge diet and Slim Fast and all those things, because I've seen my mum do them, lose weight and then like unfortunately put it all back on again. So they've always done their best with me, but they've never been the best role models.
They didn't inspire you in a bad way, but they did inspire you in a good way. Right?
That's a great way to put it.
Do you find it now that you're into the whole fitness game that you look at them and you go, "I wish I could do this, like try this, do this"? Do you ever offer them advice and they're just like, "Nah"?
My dad, over the last couple of years, has almost seen my changes and done something about it himself. So he's reduced the amount of alcohol he drinks. Still drinks a fair bit, but he's reduced it dramatically to what he did do. My mum, my mum is, I love my mum. I'm a mummy, I openly admit, a mummy's boy, always have been, but she frustrates the life out of me.
Do you know what? I'm going to raise my hand, mate, and say I'm exactly a mummy's boy. And my mum frustrates the fuck out of me as well, because she's always asking for advice on fitness. She's like, "Well, you work in the gym, help us out." And I'm like, "Cool, no worries, do this, try this, do 3 simple things for whatever it is, right?" And then like a month later, she's like, "Did you have any other advice?" And I'm like, "Well, do the things that I said and it'll work." But it's like, well, parents never listen to us. Do you know what I mean? We go through a phase where we don't like to listen to our parents, and then our parents spend the rest of our lives not listening to us. Like, no matter what profession we're in, they're just like, "No, that's fine."
It's incredibly true. And one of the biggest moments for me within the coaching slash podcasting world that I'm in now was Mum asked me to ask Emma Story-Gordon, who came on my podcast, brilliant guest, incredibly knowledgeable in the fitness game, around some issues that she was experiencing. And the advice that I'd given Mum was pretty much word for word what came out of Emma Story-Gordon's mouth. And I was like, it's up to you whether you take action on this or not, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know, Mum probably won't listen to this podcast, but again, when I listen to myself speaking now, I'm trying not to say it in such a harsh way. But this is where it came down to with me, is it took for me to grab the bull with both horns and do something about the issues that I was facing at the time.
Yeah, nice. It's funny that you mentioned the food at hand, because I worked in a restaurant for 7 years, and it was like, I was a skinny kid, so I would want to do the opposite. I want to gain weight, and it was just like, I'm going to steal some chips. There's some chicken wings going spare. I'm going to have them.
Yeah.
What? They sent the burger back? Oh, I guess I'll steal that. You know what I mean? So I kind of relate to there's always food on hand thing, but it's hard to resist as well, whether you're a skinny kid trying to gain weight or whether you're a larger person trying to lose weight. It's like, it's hard to resist when there's always food around.
Well, the worst thing, which I didn't mention about working at Asda, was I started on the produce department, fruit and veg, lifting boxes, chucking it all out. And then I moved through the ranks as such, changed departments to security.
All right.
And I swear down, my job was doing this.
Yeah. Were you the ones that catch people stealing steaks and JD balls?
Yeah. I mean, whether like Asda, Walmart, whoever, I hope you're not listening, but I didn't do too much security work. I wasn't.
What is it? Can you answer this for me? This is totally off topic and not in my question list, but when something beeps, right, how do you decide whether you're going to attack that person and ask for a receipt or just let them go? Because we've walked through and it's like, I know it's a steak in my bag that's beeped, and they go, oh, it's all right. Like, how do you know who's stealing something and who's just forgot to take a security tag off?
Normally, giving away the game of security, you've got an inkling of who you're stopping before they've even walked out the door.
Okay.
If you can see somebody that's walked through the tills, they've been through a checkout, they've got their items all bagged up, 90% likely that they've paid for what they've got in their bag that's beeping. If you've got a fella walking out with a rucksack, just from memory's sake, walking pretty briskly, they don't want to look at you, and they bib when they walk through the door, you've got a good chance of wanting to apprehend them to search your bag. But actually, there's some pretty strict rules with regards to who you can stop and who you can't.
Nice.
This is very off topic for today's podcast, isn't it?
You know this yourself being a podcast. Podcast take tangents.
It's called scone, funnily enough. Eating a lot of food when I was... But no wonder I can remember it. Selection. You've got to see them select the item, conceal it. You've got to observe them round the store with that item. Then you've got to see them not pay for it, which is the N, and then on exit, which is the E, you can then apprehend them. There you go. Remember that now.
This is a great TikTok clip. Just that alone. Everyone's going, Asda now. Well, I didn't conceal it. I did pay rent.
I'm just trying to work out whether I signed a non-disclosure agreement at Asda or something, but I'm pretty sure I didn't, yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Asda's not listening to this. Even if they are, what can they do? Do you know what I mean?
Not a lot.
Not a lot, exactly, mate. So, in terms of the relationship with food and drink compared to now, what do you think it was? Obviously, you had food on hand. Was there any, like... Because I've had several people on here. Do you know Sam Gibson?
Yeah.
So I had him on, and he was talking about like emotional eating. Was that ever a problem for you, or was it just the fact that it was food on hand and you just felt a little bit lazy? Was it like comfort eating, or was there more to it?
I believe it was comfort eating at times. And when I look back at it, without putting a label on it or self-diagnosing myself, I was bored.
Yeah.
I was very bored.
Yeah.
I was starting work at 6 a.m. I was probably underslept, which automatically makes you feel more tired. I was drinking full fat monsters in the morning to think that it was going to get me to be more stimulated at work. And then by 10 o'clock, all I'm really craving, because it's the next good thing that's going to happen in a day, is my break time, half an hour break to go and smash a 12-piece fryer, for example.
Yeah.
But I look back at my food habits now, I just had no calorie awareness, none whatsoever. And it wasn't until later in my fitness journey that I started taking my macros and calories more serious. But when I look back at the Harry who was young, naive, and didn't care too much for himself, really, at the time, cared for a lot of other people, but really, when I looked at myself, didn't really care for him too much.
Yeah.
Not in like a morbid way, but just
You weren't bothered,
Yeah.
You were just like, it's packed crisps. Who cares?
Exactly. And I remember one of my really good friends at the time. We'd watch WWE on a Monday night Raw, stay up really late, and then sometimes I'd eat probably 3,000 calories worth of food just whilst the wrestling was on. Sleep for 3 hours on his sofa, get up the next day at 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock the next morning, then eat and the cycle just went on, and you can quickly see why that happened. But I don't think I was ever an emotional eater. I say I don't think because I don't really know. I can't guarantee that was a thing.
Yeah.
There would have definitely been evenings at home where I was just bored, and there have definitely been situations at work where I was just bored. And what do I like doing when I'm bored? I like eating.
Yeah, like 99% of the population of the UK. Yeah,
for sure.
Probably the world, to be fair.
And when I'm sure you can relate, like now living a lifestyle of trying to be as productive for the things that I want to materialise in my life. Those days that are busy, where you wake up at 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning. Your first check-in is with a client. I'm going to rattle off a Saturday now. The next, for me, when the football season's on, the next thing is going to visit one of your parents, put a positive influence on them, just check in on them, how they're doing, turn up at football, play 90 minutes, spend an hour with the team afterwards. You haven't got time to consume a ridiculous amount of calories.
Yeah, and the other option to that is carry around little boxes of broccoli, rice and chicken, isn't it?
For sure.
That's not exactly ideal, is it?
Not at all. And like eating on a hop is fine, but not always. And meal planning for the Harry that is currently existing now, the new Harry, which I quite like to call him, like meal planning is so important to it. But when it comes to emotional eating and whether I had bad habits, I've had them, and sometimes that craving will still appear in my mind. I'm sat at home, I'm watching TV, what can I eat next?
Yeah.
But then it's having the know-how and the knowledge to say, okay, old habit, like sometimes you give into it if you're not give into it, but sometimes you'll allow it if you're on one of those days where you're not worrying about it. But on a day where you've trained, which normally makes a big difference because you don't want to ruin the effects of the training that you've done.
Yeah.
Massive influence on my life as a whole. But also the know-how to realise that your brain can't always win. The things that your brain can't always win. Not doing the thing that your brain tells you that it wants you to do or not wants you to do is where I think my mindset has changed the most over the 8 years that it's been. Nice
man. It's funny because obviously, like, it's easy to overlook what you eat. It's very easy to just say, well, especially the travel thing. That's a big one. Like when you're on the go all the time, it's very easy to get, McDonald's or Burger King or Tim Hortons is the new one that keeps cropping up. There's loads of them around here now. I don't know where this came from.
Not heard of it.
Tim Hortons?
Nah.
Do you know what? It's really nice.
Is it?
But it's so bad for you. They do like little, is it donut balls and stuff like that, like chocolate coated donut balls.
Yeah.
Like, god damn.
Avoid that like the plague. Yeah.
Yeah. But it is just, I think when it comes down to it, awareness. Like for people people were having a go at restaurants for putting the calories on the menus now, and I was for it, right? And I had a discussion with someone, and they were saying, well, people who have eating disorders, it could cause bulimia when people see what they're taking in, and I'm like, well, if you were to look at statistics, not to shit on anyone who's unfortunately suffering with bulimia, it's horrible, right? But for someone if you look at the statistics, we're in an obesity epidemic, not a anorexia epidemic. Yes, there's obviously a high number of anorexia cases, but the majority is obesity, right? So it's like I'm one of those people who's for putting calories on menus. I don't know how you feel about that. Would that for your clients and stuff like that? Would you recommend they look at things like that, or?
I did a little clip on my own podcast yesterday on the Monday episode that I just do with myself, where I kind of review a few things that I've spoken about with people over the week, and it almost reiterates the point to myself, so I make sure that I hold on to the information. But one of the key things for my clients in general is to just keep things as simple as you possibly can. The more complex you make your diet or your change to your life or the habits that you're trying to implement in your life, the less likely you are to stick to those habits or changes or diet changes, whatever they may be. But when it comes to calories, fundamentally, if your goal is weight loss specific, and maybe for the first 2 weeks of the program with me over the 100 days, we don't specifically look at calories. And at the end of those 2 weeks, you come back to me for your fortnightly check-in. I say, where are you at with your weight loss? And you say, I've put weight on or I've stayed the same. Then the only real methodology of taking that away scientifically, or doing something about that scientifically, is by either reducing your calories or burning more energy. Getting yourself into a calorie deficit. So, look, I don't know if you've seen the new episode of, going back to the point that the question that you've asked, the new Guardians of the Galaxy.
Absolutely loved it.
Incredible. But if the directors would have thought of all of the animal activists in the world when they thought about making that movie, that movie would never have got produced.
Interesting point, that. Yeah.
So, the health experts, or whoever they are in the UK, are only doing this from a standpoint of this country is suffering with a obesity epidemic.
Yeah.
How can we try and stop people eating more than they should be to stop them putting on weight? Well, let's make people more aware of what they're consuming.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I understand how it can trigger people with issues with eating disorders and all those sorts of things, but if you change your perspective of that and say, okay, that's not benefited me, but it may have benefited 80% of the population.
It
may have made people more, and I know I'm speaking from a place of everybody's going to open their perspective to these ideas.
Oh yeah, you're always going to have people on both sides of the spectrum, really.
Sure.
With anything. Like, any piece of advice or information can be used to either hurt you or help you. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
And one of the things that with working with Paul has made me realise is that it genuinely is up to you how you choose to react to something.
Yeah.
And if people that have been upset or triggered by calories being put on a menu, they could open up their horizon a little bit, and again, I don't mean that in a patronising way, I'm just saying it with an open heart. Okay, somebody that's trying to lose weight may have really benefited from that information. They may have really benefited from knowing that burger that they would have ordered 2 months ago actually had 1,900 calories in it. And they changed their mind to order the half chicken with rice and veg instead.
Yeah, exactly.
Then that job of the calories being on the menu is done what it's there for.
Oh yeah. Agreed, 100%. So jumping into the next stage of your journey that I found. By the way, I had to do a huge dive into your social media because there is so many pictures on your social media. And scrolling through, I was like, through everything, I was like, where all the juicy stuff? Where's the dirt? There was no dirt on Harry whatsoever. There was interesting things, don't get me wrong, but there was no dirt. There was nothing I could bring up like to surprise you. Cut me off from the surpriseness.
Oh, sorry.
It's fine. But you did mention that when you got into sort of this new way of thinking, you read a lot of self-help books. You got into the books. So I'm just curious, what did you kind of start reading? Where was the start with your self-help mindset journey?
First one was the Chimp paradox.
Nice. We just went to a speech the other night where there was a surgeon talking about that, actually. Yeah. I've never read it, but I think I know roughly what it's about.
I may have butchered the title of the book, but it's basically The Art of Managing Your Chimp. Yeah, the Chimp Paradox by Dr. or Professor Steve Peters.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and incredible, amazing book that just opened my horizon on how I was thinking and how I was feeling at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I won't hold back by saying it. I was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I just wasn't very happy. I was in a relationship, and again, with no disrespect, it wasn't the relationship that was going to be forever. And I knew that pretty early, and that was causing some anxiety, let's just say.
Yeah.
There are other things in my life regarding my health, maybe living at home, but just again, I'll go back to that being not that driven. Just not that driven. Yeah. Didn't have anything else really going on. I would go to work, come home. A lot of my life was based in the car, driving a lot of miles, a lot of time to think, a lot of time to overthink, let's just say. And it led to me getting the experience and the symptoms of anxiety, basically, which then led to me becoming upset because I thought that was the end of the world. So the first self-help thing that I read was the Chimp Paradox, The Art of Managing Your Chimp, which just explained how your brain works.
Yeah, it's kind of managing your emotions, almost, isn't it? That the chimp is it right that the chimp represents your emotional part of the brain? Is that right?
So there are three elements. How he describes it is that your chimp will always, no matter what you do, make a snap assessment of a situation. So something happens in the street. Let's just say you get tooted by a car. The first thing in your brain that will analyze that situation is your chimp. There's probably a scientific word, but the way that I remember it is that your chimp will analyze that. It's like your child. It's the non-human part of your brain that we've all got from back in the Homo sapien days, right? And that chimp will assess it normally in a negative way. Fuck you, you've just bibbed at me. However, taking your time to let the chimp settle down, it then goes into your computer that will then process the situation that's happened. So somebody's just bibbed at me. What can we make of the situation?
Yeah. What logically can
we make of the situation? Maybe I did make a mistake. Maybe I've done something wrong in an area of the country I don't know, whatever. And then your human, which is the more empathetic, realistic 21st century or 20th century, 19th century, whichever way you want to put it, will get involved and make a calmer assessment. And what you do find is that many people take their chimp reaction to be their reaction straight up, right? You probably know many people that you can say, are they going to give this situation a fair assessment? Unfortunately, the answer is no, because they let their chimp dictate it. And then maybe if you've had a falling out with this person, or you've seen them get in a situation in the street on a Friday night, they'll let the chimp reaction overtake them. They'll get in a scrap. They'll have an argument. They'll call somebody a whatever. And then it won't be until 24 hours later that they're like, shit.
They processed it.
Then they've processed it. And then they feel complete sympathy or empathy for the situation that they've put themselves through. But obviously by that time, with a lot of people, sometimes it's too late.
It's almost like being triggered. Almost that's what your chimp does. It makes you triggered. But I heard something the other day, and I'd heard it years ago, but it's been playing in my mind a bit. Is that when you're triggered, the response is often disproportionate to your current reality. And I love that. And I was like, you know what? It's true, because when you respond emotionally straight away, like, it's never the right thing to do.
No.
You're always going to make the wrong decision when you're emotional. And it's like, the sooner you can get to that logical or human side of you, like, that's what training your chimp is. I think that's what the whole point of the book is training that chimp to be like, well, I don't need to respond straight away. Yes, that chimp will always have an input, but it's like, you don't listen to that input straight away. I think I've got that right.
Yeah, no, you've absolutely.
As someone who hasn't read the book, talking to someone who has read the book,
absolutely nailed it. And there was a chapter in the book that was the one that resonated with me the most, and it basically explained that you are naturally going to feel anxious and stressed if part of your world isn't aligned with how you're seeing the future. So I did actually go to counselling, which I'm not afraid to admit at the time, to suss out what was actually an overreaction from my chimp and what actually I wanted in the future. And it basically, at the time, I just wasn't happy enough to be in this relationship. And she was a great girl. There's nothing about that whatsoever. It's just me at the time.
Yeah.
Needed some space and time to go through what I needed to do. And that was the first real book that I resonated with and was like, okay, this is normal. Now you've got to work on you. Like it was I'd made it sounds really shocking analogy. I'd made the bow with the weight loss. I now needed some arrows, right?
Makes sense. I like that. Yeah. No, I like that.
And I'd done the physical element. I sorted myself out. I was in okay shape. I'm in better shape now, which I'm proud to say. This journey is just like a continual spiral, and it has been for spiral sounds negative, but a good
You
spiral.
can go on an upward spiral.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, upward spiral is what I've done over the last 8 years. Is I've continually just improved myself little bit by little bit. But that period in 2000 and it was early, man. 2018, 19 was probably when it started. But it was a case of I didn't know at the time how to get myself out of that feeling of constantly worrying about being anxious, right?
Yeah, no, I get that, yeah.
And then it wasn't until a year after that journey started that I stumbled across Mr. Paul Mort, and then my life has progressively spiraled upwards since that moment.
Nice.
Yeah.
How long have you been with Paul now?
It's coming up 2 years, which
Nice.
is, it's phenomenal. How I was listening to Joe Rogan on the way here.
Yeah.
And the phenomena of getting older and time going quicker is 100% a thing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the older you get, the quicker the seconds on the clock move.
Do you know what, mate? I feel you on that one, 100%.
It is amazing. And I've mentioned this guy hundreds of times on my podcast. The previous interview I did on somebody else's podcast was we dived into the changes that Paul has made on my life, and I can only thank the guy.
I'm sure. Well, to be fair, you've interviewed him as well, haven't you?
Say that again, sorry.
You've interviewed him as well.
I have,
yeah.
Tomorrow, I'm not scared to admit that he will be my 100th episode guest.
Nice.
That's exciting.
So I'm not even 6 months into my podcast. I don't know. I started in November. So I'm obviously about 7 months into this podcast. So
I know it sounds ridiculous, but I wanted Paul to be my 100th guest when I'd made 20. But I want him to be my 100th guest, as I can't give him a gift that he probably has never had before, right? He's an experienced guy. But a sign of mutual respect, he'll never listen to this neither, but I'll tell him tomorrow, is that this is my gift to him because of the influence that he's had on my life. He is my 100th episode.
Nice. To be fair, that'll probably mean more to him than if you got him, a book or, bought him something cool. Do you know what I mean? I think that would probably mean a lot, especially in our circle. That sign of respect, I think, means
for sure
a lot.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. So with the podcast, what was the goal behind that? Like, why did you start that up?
So this is an interesting one. I'm not sure how far down the Instagram.
I went down the rabbit hole.
You went down the rabbit hole of Harry Purdy.
It's gone through several changes, your podcast over time, yeah.
So originally it was lockdown. I was out on one of those, meet up with a mate and have a walks.
Did you stay 2 meters apart?
Yeah, And I was like, I'm bored, man, but I feel like I want to start a podcast. But I've always had a part of me that's always wanted to create something.
Yeah.
But I just never knew what it was until that moment. I started off with creating blogs for Football Manager back in my nerdy overweight days. I don't regret that though. It was good fun at the time.
Sounds cool, man.
Suited it. And then I went into streaming.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And
Did you stream Football Manager?
Stream Football Manager.
Nice.
Again, like in that weird period of time when I was like, I needed an outlet, but I didn't know what the outlet was. And then it was, I'd stopped doing that because it wasn't the thing that I wanted. And I was like, this podcast idea is the one that I was like, this could work. And the original idea was I'd get people on in the local area who'd played a decent to professional level of sport and talk to them about their journey, because I thought that it would be the opportunity that they never kind of got to tell their story.
So it was more like a sports themed podcast.
It was,
right?
yeah. The Grassroots guy was my old
name.
Yeah. And you
I think so.
You were a Grassroots guest.
I must have been one of the very last ones that
I
you did,
reckon,
I think. And then it all changed.
Which is interesting, yeah. So, but within this element of starting a podcast, there was always an element of self-improvement and self-help that went alongside it. Even the early episodes where I remember I had a lad from the area called Elliot Watts on the podcast. He was a boxer, and he went through some serious trauma with losing his dad at a young age and having some eating disorder issues and losing a lot of weight.
Yeah.
I was much more interested in that side of his development than I was really the boxing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I could just feel that within me, like taking the conversation down an element of, okay, let's find out how he's become the guy he is now, rather than, okay, what about fight free and what was it like to get punched for the first time and all those sorts of things.
That's more like sports commentator kind of,
for sure. So, and then even through the pros that I had on, I had a guy called Nathan Smith on who'd played over 300 professional games in the Football League. And he went down a spiritual route, and I wanted to talk to him about that more than I did about his career. And then Carl Dickinson, who'd played for Leeds, Stoke City, I was asking him more about the things that he'd learnt from managers and advice that he'd been given throughout his career, and when things weren't going quite right for him, how did he? And one of the saying that he said, when you think you've done enough, do more. And that one's always stuck with me because he was an average footballer, let's just say, in the grand scheme of amazing footballers at that level, right? But he made a massive career out of the fact that he just worked really hard. So he was above average, linking into the podcast today.
Nice one.
But then I was like, you know what? I'm coaching now. I'm getting really good results with my clients on weight loss and mindset improvement. This needs to link. And I was speaking to a guy, Craig Gillespie, who's also been on my podcast, the owner of Total Brandits.
Yes.
He's sick at what he does. And we were chatting about, I was going to use his services, and I was like, I really want to link my coaching to the podcast. And I want it to be about giving 100%. And we left the call, and then literally, I reckon half a day later, he's messaged me and he goes, 100% is your initials.
That's true. Yes, that's just clicked for me as well.
Yeah. But only Craig, I say only Craig, only somebody with that really niche mindset in creating and thinking of branding for somebody would have thought, like, it's obvious really when you think about it, but I was looking too far outside the box of where to go with this idea. 100% mindset, 100% fitness, Harry Purdy, HP, 100%. He just put it all together for me, and obviously that's where I'm at now. I'm speaking to guests who I believe are offering 100% in the industry that they're in, and even the last episodes of the Grassroots Guy. And this isn't to blow smoke up your ass, mate, but even the last guest that I had on that on the Grassroots Guy podcast, which is now formerly known as the 100% podcast, were people that I were looking at with admiration, or I felt that I could get something from because they were given a lot back to, the population.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, mate. I appreciate that. So when you get the guests on, how do you, first of all, who do you, obviously you decide by who's doing it in the local area. So when did you decide to transition from a more football sports based? Why did you want mindset more so? Was it because you... Actually, you know what? I'm not going to go with that because I had an idea there, but I'm going to let you explain that instead. So, when you got the guest on, why did you transition?
I wanted it to relate more to me. Everybody who has followed my journey, if there is anybody that's followed my journey, really... The point
there's always people that watch, man. Always.
There is, and I meant that tongue in cheek in some respects, but it doesn't really matter who's watching my journey because it's making me fulfilled. And the Grassroots episodes are amazing. And in fact, I've had local guests on recently, but I've spoken to them more specifically about them, and they do well because local people like to hear about local people, right? But with the podcast, and why I wanted it to go down more of a mindset route was because that is it's my biggest passion right now. I'm looking to try and influence in my own way as many people as I possibly can. More importantly, I'm waking up with the attitude that I want to give as much to myself as I possibly can. And I know it sounds cheesy, but giving 100% in every element of your day-to-day life that you possibly can. And one thing that I will always stress, and I have stressed on my podcast, is that you can't always give 100%. It's impossible. If ever anybody was to question, you can't give 100% all the time. I'm totally aware of that. But if you're at 60%, on that day you wake up and you can give 60%, you've done exactly all you needed to on that day.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to take the podcast down the route of 100% podcast, speaking to people about their experiences, their coaching, the life experiences that they've been through, the changes that they've gone through, the comebacks that they've gone through, the people I've spoken to, man.
Yeah.
They are only inspirational in their own individual way, and that is why I've gone down that route, mate. Because I love talking.
Yeah. Do you think you'll ever get your own like studio as well, or are you comfortable with the Zoom kind of
Just
stuff?
invested in it. So
Inside a scoop right here, guys.
yeah, inside a scoop. So obviously this won't be possible for every guest, because if I'm inviting Adam Proud on the podcast, the likelihood that he comes down to Yeovil to sit in my studio.
Hey mate, you never know. You're here in mine. You never know.
Yeah, this is true. And Somerset and Devon, beautiful place. It'd be a lovely romantic weekend. So
okay. Yeah, why
not?
Why not?
So that's what I'm doing. I've just invested a little bit of money into making my spare room similar to this. I've got all of the gear ordered. And I've got 2 local guests, a nutritionist and a footballer, lined up to do it face to face. So, I mean, this is the beautiful thing about taking on a challenge and self-improvement, is that you can always see the breadcrumb trails of your improvement, right? If I look back at the early videos of the 100% or the grassroots guy, and then looked at them now, even though I'm still recording over Zoom, the difference in the quality and the content is good.
Yeah.
Compared to when I was chucking a landscape video of me and a guest and putting a little headline in horrendous font underneath. But now, obviously, I've done the Zoom element. I've taken that as far as I possibly can. So now it's like, okay,
what's the next
What's
step?
next?
Yeah, 100%. It's funny that you mentioned that when you look back at the old ones and you think, that looks a bit shit. It's funny because most people are so, like, people don't think of that. Like, there's probably people listening to this who go, you know what, I'd love to have a podcast of my own, or I'd love to have a video series or whatever, but I can't make them look as good as yours, or I can't make them look as good as Joe Rogan's. And it's like, have you ever looked at Joe Rogan's first podcast? It's just him on a shitty sofa with one camera angle, just chatting absolute shit into a crap microphone.
I believe.
It's like,
Yeah, I heard. Maybe it was Chris Williamson talking about it the other day, but I'd never actually looked at Joe Rogan's early footage until the other day.
yeah.
And you know what? It proper inspired me. And it should you, man, because your content that you produce is great. And how many episodes have you done now?
This will be 13, 14, something like that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, like, you've gone past the 10 number already, which
Woo.
a lot of people don't do. I'm recording episode 100 tomorrow, and I don't get anything for making a podcast.
No,
Nothing.
Yeah.
Not
I don't want to get sponsored by Huel or Audible or something like that.
Yeah, and that's cool. But I'm sure in those early episodes where Joe Rogan's recording on Zoom with one microphone for 2 or 3 people, he wasn't getting anything neither. And as long as I'm getting value and offering value to other people, it doesn't really matter. My income is my job and the coaching that I offer to people.
Yeah.
So whilst that's still going on and I'm suffering no financial hardship, I don't really want to make any money from the podcast. I just want to see how far I can take it.
But then it becomes more of a job and a responsibility, and oh my god, I've got to make this up to par, and it's hard. It's like running 2 jobs almost, rather than a hobby and a job.
I do remember actually reaching out to Skinny Food Company in my early podcast days, asking to be an affiliate. But then now I look back and I'm like, I don't even use Skinny Food. Some of their stuff tastes horrendous, but some of it's okay. And sorry, Skinny Food, I still like your stuff sometimes.
Some stuff.
But if I was still their affiliate and I was being asked to push that 10%, I just feel a bit stupid now.
Yeah.
Like, which is, it's bizarre when you think of it, because that really is, getting a sponsor or getting an affiliate link is probably one of the quickest ways you could make money off of a podcast.
Yeah.
But if it's not related to who I am now, and I'd feel uncomfortable pushing that product because I'm not 100% behind it, then it's probably best not for me.
I mean, I jump from podcast to podcast. Two of the podcasts that I love the most, one of them is the Norse Mentality, which is really cool.
Okay.
Because I loved the show Vikings. That was what got me into it. Then I played Assassin's Creed Valhalla because I'm a slow gamer. And then I started looking for, I think it was like some music to do with the game, and then I could discover the podcast on Spotify. So I love that one. The Michael Sartain podcast, which is done in Vegas, which is just mental. I love the guests he gets on. But neither of those have any sponsors.
Wow.
And then I listened to Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. And I got really annoyed because every 15 minutes when I'm driving, there was this long ass advert for Whoop bands or Huel, and I'm like, honestly, stop. I just want to listen to them tell a life story. Stop interrupt me with adverts. I get you've got to make money, I understand, but at the same time, I was like, I kind of just want to listen to the content. So I'm kind of glad that these ones are more conversation. I have an intro at the beginning, there's some music and that my friend made for me, and that's it. That's all the interruptions. There's no interruptions. It's from start to finish. You listen to Harry's story, you listen to whoever's on, and then it's just, I prefer it that way, man.
It makes a difference, I think. And without going in on Diary of a CEO, me and Rob McGeary, who I've had as a guest on my show many times, he's an amazing personal trainer and fitness coach, and he's very knowledgeable in many areas. But we spoke about Diary of a CEO because we are intrigued, let's just say, as to where his podcast is coming from. We use the terminology soft personal development and
I know what you mean.
Pushing agendas that don't quite match the subject title that he's put onto the show. And it's, as good as therapy is, sometimes you listen to one of his episodes and you're like, are you just trying to get this person to cry for the audience? And that may sound incredibly harsh, but with his early episodes you would get solutions to problems with such as your mental health or physical health or business proposals and making your brand bigger. And I say it with this guy's incredibly successful, right?
Steve, but he's incredible, but I 100% know what you mean.
And he's been pushing, where I'm coming from is the fitness element mainly, pushing calories don't matter and need to worry about cooking celery rather than just eating it whole. And I'm just like, mate, these clips are being clicked on by people with not this. I'm very much on the low echelons of education in some of these nutrition topics, but I know that that's bollocks. Why are you sharing a clip that's going to get 5 million views, and maybe if somebody's taking that as face value and they're trying to lose weight, they see the headline with Stephen Bartlett, CEO, that says calories don't count. They then go into the gym the next day and they're like to their personal trainer, or they're like, oh no, they have a chat with their mate and they say, oh, don't matter, diet's fine, calories don't count. And you're like, come on. And I know that's a real, you've got to be careful with what you put out there online.
That's the problem is when you're an authority figure, you'll get pushed to do things like that. I can imagine. No one tells me what I can and can't say on this podcast. Yet. There's no one that's come on and said, Adam, you can't say this, or Harry, you need to tone this down. No one said that yet. Obviously I get feedback, which is great. Feedback's good, but there's no one higher than me that says you need to mention this or try and get this person to do this. But I imagine with Diary of a CEO, he's going to get that in the background. There's going to be other people that work on the board, people who rely on him for income, etc., who unfortunately has to kind of do that in order to pay them, I'd imagine. There's probably some hierarchy and boardrooms behind a lot of, as you were saying, pushing things that maybe he doesn't quite believe in, or maybe it's just mainstream. And again, Stephen Bartlett's quite a mainstream name at the minute. He's kind of pushed through into the mainstream, so obviously he has to also fit that mainstream narrative to stay in the mainstream. He can't be pushing things that are maybe a bit controversial or whatever, because people will just revolt against him. Do you know what I mean? They'll be out with the pitchforks that you can't say this and blah blah blah. So 100%, man.
And that's why, no offense, Stephen Bartlett, I've missed a lot of his podcasts recently, because I'd much rather listen to the take action, grab the ball by the horns mentality that is pushed by Joe Rogan, by Chris Williamson, by Paul Mort, because that is the thing that I can relate to personally, right? It's not soft personal development where talking about your mental health is all that matters. It's talking about it and then working out what you need to do for yourself to make your mental health better, which is something that took me a while to get my head around. And the narrative around pushing for people, and men especially, to talk about their mental health is amazing, but talking is at
It's only
most
one side of the coin, basically.
and I think it's only 20% of the battle. 20% of the battle, maybe 25% at a push, but then you've got to cover the other 75% with the actions and the things that you take part in your daily life.
Yeah, it's the lifestyle creation as well. I've said this before. Like, you can't go to therapy and express your feelings to your friends and meditate and do all this if you don't address root causes and fix your lifestyle, right? Because it's like, imagine if you were, when you do you meditate at all?
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
meditate? Yeah. So how do you meditate? Like 20 minutes, something like
15,
that? Like 15,
yeah.
20 minutes, right? So you feel great during those 15 minutes. I'm meditating, I'm self-development or whatever, right? What happens when you stop meditating? You go back to the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you feel good for 15, 20 minutes, but like unless the lifestyle changes and you address the root cause of a lot of problems, it's not going to work for you, you know what I mean? You can cover it up with all this fancy, this is the secret bullshit, but like, yeah, you've got to address that root cause.
Can't remember who it was. Somebody told me once that all of these things, such as journaling, meditation, they're basically the supplements to your diet.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could take vitamin C, vitamin D, omega-3, magnesium, zinc, iron, calcium in the morning, like tablet form, and then eat absolute shite for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
That magnesium, iron, all the vitamins, the supplementation that you've taken is going to do fuck all.
Yeah.
So if you're meditating and journaling, but then on a Friday, Saturday night, Thursday night, you're ordering a takeaway, you're drinking 8 beers with your mates and potentially doing some form of narcotics, the effect of that meditation and journaling and whatever else you're doing for your personal development is going to mean fuck all at the end of the day.
Exactly. And it's almost like a cover up, like, oh, I'm doing all this stuff, and then, but it's like under the surface, you still want to party, you still want to do all, you just do it. Like you said, yeah, it is supplements. I like the way you phrase that there as well, because I've never journaled myself. I've meditated. I've tried to write diaries and stuff like that. Cold showers, all that stuff. Like, there's a line where you become almost a self-help junkie, almost, and you do, like, everyone who gets into self-help, I think, goes through this phase where they do everything, like the cold shower, they journal, they meditate, they go out for a walk, they go to the gym, they write down their affirmations, they do all this stuff in the mirror or whatever, right? And it's like, eventually you got to pick 2 or 3 things that work for you that makes it a sustainable lifestyle.
For sure.
So, yeah.
And there's such a balance with that. I've never been an affirmations guy, to be honest with you.
No, you never stood in the mirror and went, I am awesome, I am cool.
Do you know what, actually, in my lowest point, when I'd probably say I was a little bit depressed, I gave it a go. But I was in fact, I remember doing it and just smiling at myself, which was obviously a good place. At least I could smile at the time, right? I just was like, come on, mate, you're better than this.
But it's like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I am cool.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny? Like, you've got to meet. See, it sounds almost like we're bashing affirmations, right? But clearly they work for some people. But
sure.
It depends where you are. If you are rock bottom, fucking miserable, like on the doorstep of death, like wanting to end it all, right? Affirmations and giving yourself some positive thoughts will probably do something for you. But for someone like us, where we're at, we don't need to do that, because we just think that anyway, because we've come to that certain point, you know. So you've got to kind of meet people where they're at, I guess.
It's like the optimum weight loss formula, right? It's very much dependent on who the individual is. Mm-hmm. You could say get in a calorie deficit, great, absolutely fine. But how is totally different to like one client who may be female to the next client who's a male, because the male might be 24, want to go and play football still, but has just got a problem with the food that they're consuming. Mm-hmm. The female might be a mum to 3, have an incredibly hectic lifestyle, and fit in 3 gym sessions in a week into their life is incredibly different and more difficult for them than it is the 24-year-old. Yeah. So with the 24-year-old, you can say, right, the best way for you to lose weight is to exercise more. With the female, it would be, okay, because of your lifestyle, we're going to get you to increase your steps, and also we're going to actually look at your calorie intake more precisely than we would do the 24-year-old, right? Because he's burning more calories. Yeah. And that's the same with mental health and self-development. Our routines probably on a daily basis for where we're at mentally are probably completely different. We've got some similar interests. We want to get better. We want to feel as good as we possibly can, which isn't possible all of the time, which is something I really think needs to be said more. But my routine is I journal every morning and every night. You don't do that.
No.
I don't cold shower every day, but I try and cold shower like weekdays, because I feel that it gives me energy in the weekdays when I may need it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I meditate. But if I was to say to you, do you journal? The answer is no. And then the reason that I do that, though, is because it's with Paul's...
Yeah, his Unstoppable Journal
Alliance.
is amazing. I've seen it,
I've forgotten his course name then. He's going to slap my wrist. Alliance. And every morning it's... So in journaling for most people is they write their thoughts. And again, this is just coming from where I'm at with it. But I've only ever known one way of journaling. Paul's is action-based questions of how do you want to feel today? How are you going to feel that way? Who can you impact positively? And then, but most importantly, at the end of every day, you review your day, who you've impacted positively, how you're feeling in that day, what's the thing that you could have improved on. But as I say again, most importantly, it's what have you done? What 3 wins have you got from today?
Yeah.
And having your brain focused on that rather than what may have gone wrong or not even anything to review your day has been probably one of the number one factors of me improving my life and lifestyle and getting to a more content place than I was 2 years ago, because I know that every day, majority of every day for the last 2 years, every day I've done 3 things that have impacted myself positively.
Nice. You know, when you're interviewing these people as well, do you ask them about their habits as well? And do you ever feel like, obviously when you interviewed Paul Mort, like he's, you know, on another level to everyone else that I know, right? Did you ever get a sense of like, do I deserve to be interviewing him? Am I doing enough in my life to warrant it? Like that almost imposter syndrome. I don't like to use that term because I don't feel like it fully encapsulates how you feel. But yeah, imposter syndrome. Do you ever feel that with any of your guests?
Sometimes. But I have to remember, they've said yes to coming on my show for a reason. Whatever that reason may be. For me, I'll be honest and confident enough to say that they probably look at my podcast in general at the moment and say, okay, he's got an okay podcast, but the way that I'll approach people with a voice note or the way that I'll write an email or the way that I'll write a message, I just like to think that I'm being authentic. I'm always going to be myself. And that's something that I've tried so hard to do. Even when, I remember Emma Story-Gordon came on the show and there were a few technical issues. I was like, there was a flashing on the screen and she just was, again, she was being herself and saying that is annoying me, and that was absolutely fine. I was
what was it, like your ring light going on?
God knows, man. It was like, oh no, I know exactly what it was. My new Elgato camera didn't like my kitchen light and I couldn't work out what was causing it.
I see.
So when I turned the light off, it stopped it completely. So anyway, it was sorted. But that was like what I'm trying to get at is she came on for me. She didn't come on because the quality of the podcast was going to be incredible. However, those issues have now been fully put to bed and we're running a decent setup now with what I've got. But of course, when I interviewed Nick Littlehouse, who's coached Cristiano Ronaldo on sleep, and when I've interviewed Paul, really, when I look back at that episode now, you could just tell how nervous I was. I'd never say that I've been thinking of myself as an imposter, though. I've always had a really good ability to talk to people. It's why we run a podcast, right?
Yeah.
The ability to hold a conversation with somebody, to find some middle ground. I'm quite an empathetic person, happy-go-lucky. So maybe it's me. People are coming, and I really hope that doesn't come across big-headed, but it's
no. I
me
mean, you know your strengths.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
What it is. Yeah.
And I've always been one of those people that's been able to wing. You know, when you're like, one of those people that can dig themselves out of a hole when they've got themselves in it. And I'd like to think that's a trait that will serve me well going further into this journey.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I'm curious for the podcast. You can answer this question or you can pass it. It's entirely to you, right? But I want to know what you personally think is your best episode and what you personally think is your worst episode. And by best and worst, I don't mean the guest. Maybe it was how you felt. Maybe it was the way you phrase something or something like that. It doesn't have to be that you hated the episode because the guest was shit or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, so what was your favorite and best, and what was your kind of worst and least favorite?
I'll go for worst first because can I say two worst ones?
Yeah.
So absolutely. I've recently started doing a really small episode that follows my bigger episodes with guests called 100% with Harry Purdy. And I recorded one last week. I made a post on it. I'm not sure if you saw.
I did it. It's part of one of the questions coming on. Yeah.
Worst podcaster ever.
Nice.
And I was the worst podcaster ever. I got everything that I could have possibly done wrong as a podcaster, I got wrong. I didn't forget to turn the mic on. The mic just USB just didn't work. And it took me 10 minutes to realise through the episode that was the case. I missed the whole headline that I was supposed to, because I was so rattled about the mini mistake that I'd made from the podcast. I was speaking about 3 things, and I was that rattled I only spoke about 2 of them, so I completely missed the heading of it. And afterwards I just felt totally deflated. I was like,
you're like, what the fuck did I just do?
This 100% with Harry Purdy is supposed to be taking me to new levels, and in fact I feel like I've just recorded my first one. So that was there. But it was a good reality check. It was. Yeah. I put we'll come on to the perspective thing in a minute. And then with a guest, I mentioned it earlier. It was with Nick Littlehells, and the reason was he had such an expertise in the area that he spoke about, which was sleep. Mm-hmm. I felt so far away with my knowledge base to be able to ask him effective questions.
Yeah, I get that.
But also, he came on with a pure desire from my perspective he was taking from the podcast rather than he was trying to offer value.
And in what way?
Every time I would ask a more intricate question regarding sleep and sleep habits and what you can do to improve it, he would be like... So I did a Q&A section actually in that podcast where I asked my Instagram followers to send in questions, and he was like, here's my number, they can contact me, drop me a DM on Instagram.
He's pitching on your podcast
for sure.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
See, I don't mind that. Like, if you said, call it, like, you mentioned the name of your podcast, that doesn't, like, it's no effect on my podcast if you say, go listen to my podcast, because I want people to go and listen to yours as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, but pitching and being like, here's my number and my email, like, winking at the camera and stuff, it's a bit weird, yeah.
And don't get me wrong, though, there were some fascinating clips, but I just felt, I came away from that not disappointed of how I just needed to do a bit more research. I should have got a feeling of who this guy was before I actually sent the message out, and I knew who he was and what he taught, but and I'm sure he's a great guy to have a beer with, and this isn't a personal attack on the guy, but at the time I think he probably potentially saw me as quite inexperienced and used my platform to push him rather than just have a conversation, which is what podcasts are about.
Yeah.
When it comes to best ones, honestly, from a perspective of the guests I've had on, I'll often come away and go, man, that was amazing. Man, that was amazing. Man, that was amazing. And then reflect on it and go, I've learnt X, Y, and Z from that.
Yeah.
But Dax Moy, who was at one of Paul Mort's events last year, it was my first ever Alliance meetup, and he was the guest speaker there. Basically, he wrote The Magic 100. So he's a successful author, successful PT, successful one-to-one coach, and now he's into neuroscience. And throwback 15 years, he was the guy.
Yeah.
You just, Channel 4, ITV, BBC.
Nice. He was quite a big guest then.
Yeah, but he would never consider himself to be a big guest now, if you know what I mean. He's kind of taken himself out of the limelight. He's only got a handful of one-to-one clients that he works with. But just one thing that I thought about that we'd end up talking about today would be where we're at on this journey of the pyramid. And what's amazing with the self-development pyramid, I call it. Pyramid is being completely at the top. You're whatever you want to describe. You are enlightened. You're enlightened. That's the greatest word for it. But when you speak to these people who are more enlightened than you, it makes you realise how much of this pyramid you've still got to.
Yeah, there's always another step of the pyramid.
Yeah. And there are like 3 people that have really made me think that in my life, and Dax Moy is one of them. And I've been really fortunate to record 2 episodes with him. But he basically explained when people speak about their problems, let's just use that general word in life, they say, I don't feel a certain way, or I'm looking for more of this word, and let's just use the word love. And he basically explained on the podcast that love is such a generic word that people use for a number of things. And the way that I remember it like quite well, but I may butcher the story, he said that you probably say that you love a McDonald's, but then you'll also say that you love your mum. Are they this? Is it? But you're using the same word for 2 different things. He said you need to get more clarity and to realize where you're lacking those emotions or feelings. You need to be really clear on your definitions within life.
No, I like that.
So his was attention, connection, and care. So that's his definition of love, which is interesting because he literally could recite these things. Like,
ain't no Big Mac giving you that.
Exactly. Exactly, right? So when you look at the word love, or like it was even around things like money or success, if you're saying you don't feel successful, or if you don't feel like you're getting let's just use, I don't know, another word. Yeah, let's use the word success. I don't feel like I'm successful. Well, what do you actually define success by? Are you using other people's definitions of success, or have you got your own? Because if you've got your own definitions on things like love, on relationships, on success, on happiness, then your life will start to feel more fulfilled. And that was one of the most deep yet amazing conversations I'd had on the podcast. And the other one that strikes me proper left field in terms of, I always get Rob McGeary on, and one of the episodes we spoke about UFOs and conspiracy theories.
Nice.
And it was just, you're like, one of those episodes where Rob is brilliant for me, because if somebody cancels, or I have a last minute change of plan, or I can't get anyone booked, he's all up for coming on the show.
Nice.
And sometimes we've got a real serious element to go into, but sometimes we just have a chat.
Yeah, about UFOs.
Yeah, like UFOs and stuff, which, nice. I mean, how interesting is that? So, yeah, that was another one that just off the top of my head I can take out, yeah.
I've had no UFO guys yet. I mean, to be fair, with the guy that talked about sleep, I had a boxer on a couple of weeks back, and the only boxing matches I've watched, I think, was his in research. I never watched a boxing match. I was never interested in. I'm not a sporty guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyone that knows me knows I'm not a sporty guy. Like, I like fitness and I like to keep fit, but in terms of, if you ask me to run or kick a ball, I'm fucking useless, man. I got 2 left feet. But I felt really out of my depth interviewing him. So my choice was to try and make it sound like I knew what I was talking about with boxing, or just hold my hands up and be like, look, I have no idea about boxing, but I watched you and this is what I got away from it. And that kind of took a lot of the pressure off, I think.
Amazing.
Took that imposter syndrome away, if you want to call it imposter syndrome, you know what I mean?
And also, Adam, if you'd have gone into that interview pretending to know more about boxing than you did, your episode would have unwinded on you and fell on you pretty, like, not in like a rude way, but it would have
fucked it. It would have been my mistake, and it would have been my fuck up.
And like where I'm going back to with the question you asked me previously is that would have made you seem inauthentic to him.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, by saying, I don't know a lot about boxing, but I have watched a YouTube video of one of your fights, here's what I got from it, probably made the episode for him. And the fact that you took the time to go and do a bit of research on the guy probably made him feel more comfortable in the situation.
Yeah, well, that's my whole, Do you do research on your guests as well?
I do a fair bit. And do you know what? As quick and it can sound a bit cheaty as it is, you can get a lot from people's Instagrams.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
A lot. In our line of work with the coaches that I have on, everybody's got their niche. So, like, if you looked at my bio, you'd probably be able to ask me 3 questions from just my bio.
Yeah.
And also with the things that they're posting about, you can get a suss of what kind of conversation they're going to enjoy having on the show.
Yeah. It's just finding their interest and stuff like that. Like, I've been on ones. I went on one. I'm not going to name any names because it was still a good, interesting conversation. But she was like, I know nothing about you. I've got no questions, so we're just going to talk. I was like, great. I was like, let's do it, you know. But it was just the way, you know, they did the podcast, and that was it. You know what I mean? It was still fun, but I was like, you know what? If you'd done a little bit of research, probably would be just. I think it's better for the guest as well. Sorry, well, yeah, they're the guests, but also the people listening.
Oh,
because they want to know. I always like when I listen to a podcast and someone pulls out like a trump card. I had a guy called James Hatton on, who I think it's the episode before this. And I went through his Instagram and I went like scrolling all the way back down. Like I put it up on the laptop so I could scroll faster. And there was a clip of him on like ITV too. He was on a TV show and he was kind of catching biscuits in his mouth and stuff like that.
Oh my god!
And I asked him about it. He was like, how the fuck did you know that? You know what I mean? I was like, because it's on your Instagram, bro. Like you forgot. You know what I mean?
You couldn't find anything for me though.
Well, no, I did. I found a lot of stuff on your Facebook and stuff like that. 'Cause he didn't have Facebook, but do you know everything that I found on you? I wanted to kind of talk about anyway. There was no like stuff that I wanted to catch you off.
No rabbit holes.
There was no. Yeah, you're very like rabbit hole free.
There
was some stuff that I could have brought up and said, "Oh, this time," but I was like, you know what, like where I want to go with this episode, I didn't want to, you know, bring that.
Fair play, man.
But I do want to sort of wrap with a interesting segment, actually, mate, just to sort of round off our episode, because I've really enjoyed this so far, mate. It's I've spoke to you, obviously I did your podcast, and we spoke on Messenger, but this is the first time me and Harry have met in person. This is the first full conversation we've had outside of your podcast. When did we even do that now? Your episode?
I reckon it was... I want to say it was before Christmas.
It was definitely before Christmas. It was probably like, mid last year, maybe. Well, it was still when you were the grassroots guy.
Were you episode 69?
Yeah, I think so. I was. I remember that. Listen, I'm gonna have to find that clip as well. I was like, yeah, 69.
Yeah, there you go, man. Yeah, so that was when you think about that, that's 30 weeks ago.
31 episodes ago. Yeah.
Weeks. Yeah, there you go.
Fucking hell. Mate, time flies, man. Time flies. But I'm happy you came. But I wanted to jump on your fitness mindset a bit. So I went on the internet and I was like, what would be really cool to test Harry's knowledge about? So I went on and I found 5 fitness myths that the internet claims. So they're well, not controversial, but people have 2 sides to each one of these. So I just want to get your personal opinion and a little bit of any personal experience you've had with them.
Cool? Go on. Yeah, sweet.
Fantastic. Don't be scared. It's not.
I'm like, is this a test?
I'm not going to ask you about.
I'm to bolt out of the room.
I have to go. I have stuff to do. Yeah. So number 1 is stretching before a workout hurts your gains. He's considering it for anyone not watching the video.
I am.
He's considering his answer for this.
Stretching nonsense. Like I'm going to say that's nonsense because you get gains when you put yourself into hypertrophy and you work your muscles harder than you have done previously. Other things that support gains is obviously the nutrition around it. Stretching before a workout's not going to help it. Not going to change any results. One thing I'd say about stretching before a workout is if you're statically stretching before a workout and you're about to squat 120 kg, that's probably not the best workout for the workout you're about to have. Right. I think where people go wrong is they'll sit on the floor and stretch. I say go wrong. Everyone's going to the gym with the knowledge that they've got, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're going into the gym and bearing in mind, I'm not a PT either, so this is just from my experience. Statically stretching before you do something pretty strenuous probably isn't going to help you. Moving your muscles to prepare you for the exercises you're about to partake in is a better way of warming up. So, for example, when I squat now, I'll move in a squat-like manner in other exercises before
walks and
stuff. Exactly. Yeah. You know, crab walks, ice skaters. Get the hamstrings moving, get my quads fired up, and then go and squat. Mm-hmm. Statically stretching, probably not the best way of warming up. That's more squat specifically, but there is a place in the exercise world for stretching. Though.
Yeah, 100%.
I would definitely.
Because I think what you've said there as well, it's funny because if you think of it that way, stretching statically won't aid your gains, but so say you're squatting, right? Like you said. If you stand there and you just, stretch your leg out ever so slightly and stuff, it's not going to harm your gains, but it's not going to help. Whereas if you do them little walks, like we said, like crab, what do you call them? Crab walks,
skaters,
whatever you want. Yeah, whatever you want. Yeah, you do those. It's going to help you in your gains because you're probably going to be able to shift more because you're more warmed up. You're also going to have that range of motion, which is going to help you get, the weight down further if you're doing a squat, you know what I mean? So I like that. I'm 100% with you on that. Amazing. So number 2 is longer workouts or more meaningful?
Great question. Again,
I'm on two minds about this one, to be honest, but
yeah,
I'm curious what you think.
It all relates. I know this is very Switzerland, but it all relates back to the goal that you're training for. Mm-hmm. If you're training for ultra marathons or long distance running, the longer your workout, probably the more beneficial it's going to be for you with the goal that you've got. Shorter workouts, again, if you're training for strength or to look aesthetically better, having 5 or 6 exercises in your program and going into the gym and smashing 3 sets of 6 exercises in 40 minutes, there's absolutely no problem with doing that. Mm-hmm. Especially if we look back at my old story of the mum with 3 kids who's trying to fit a workout in her week. That could be the best workout for her.
Yeah.
They have their place. I remember training, in fact, going to the gym when I was powerlifting, and some of my sessions would take 2 hours. Mm-hmm. Because
you have to wait between.
Got to wait. Yes, and yeah, I don't think that I'm being very Switzerland now. I don't think there is an answer to that question. I think it all benefits around who you are, how much time you like spending in a gym or exercising, and what your goals are.
Yeah, because I mean, I think it was is it Arnie who used to do 2.5 hours or something, and then go away and then come back 2.5 hours in the night time, and it's 5 hours a day. It's crazy, but I think don't quote me on this, but I think it was Jason Statham, who I'm a huge fan of, said something like the body's like a stick of dynamite. If you just keep flicking it slowly, it's not going to do anything. But if you whack it with a hammer intensely, that's when it's going to boom. You know what I mean? So I think that kind of sums up that quote very well.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So number 3, if I can get my questions back up, you can target fat loss in certain areas.
You can't target weight gain in certain areas. You can't eat 10 McDonald's a week and say to your body, please put that weight around my ass. It won't do it. Men and women have certain areas that they will more than likely gain weight in compared to the different sexes. I'm pretty sure men it's stomach area.
You're right, yeah.
And women, it can be around hips and thighs.
I believe that's correct, yeah.
There you go. So, yeah, no, that is a complete myth, and you should never try and target weight loss in a specific area. You can try and work body parts harder, but that's not going to guarantee even that you'll look more muscular, you'll look more structured there, but you'll never guarantee weight loss from that area.
Yeah, it's funny because it's although fat accumulates more, say, on men around the stomach area, right? It's where else would it you recommend that it go? Your calf? Or top of your head, having a massive head, or having a little everyone's got massive cauliflower ears. You know what I mean? It's
nice wobbly bit on the top of your head.
It's got the biggest masses where it's likely going to form, and it's around your organs. Really, exactly. I mean, it's a protective layer as well. But it's no matter how many stomach crunches you do, it's not going to target that specific area. Like you said, it'll build the muscle in that area, which is good. You want to do that, but if you're just going to, I get annoyed when people just go, imagine if you were due to skip leg day and just did bench and back. You know what I mean? It's you're going to get...
Well, you have seen those people before,
man. God, or the girls who are just doing bums and tums and something. No, you got to do the rest of it because you're then going to have, issues in other areas. And, but that's a topic for another time as well, mate. More sweat equals a better workout.
I am... very often, I am the most sweaty workout, so I hope that's true. I sweat so much when I go into that area of a workout that I'm working hard. But again, you can only judge it by the individual, right? I know that if I'm sweating, it's not because I'm working overtly hard, it's because I just sweat a lot. Right? Some people don't sweat at all when they work out, and I'm incredibly jealous of them, but it's just down to the individual. But going back to the point of, you want to be working yourself hard, right? And as an individual when you are working hard or not. I don't believe that there's any such thing as a bad workout unless you're putting yourself at risk of injury or you are injured. You shouldn't be working out. But when it comes to a workout, as an individual, how and when you're tired.
Yeah.
And that doesn't need to be defined on whether you're sweating or not. That means that, are you pushing yourself to near or complete failure on your working sets?
Yeah.
Are you at the last K of your run making yourself work in a cardiovascular way that you know about it? That's the area that you need to be in to have a workout that's going to have benefit on you.
Mm.
If you ask me, that's coming from a personal thing. Whether you sweat or not, though, nah, you know how your body feels when you're working hard.
Yeah, I mean, I could go into a gym, start bench pressing on my first rep, and just because the gym's hot, I'm sweating buckets. Do you know what I mean? So it's like,
that's me, man.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you're going for a cardio thing and you're out of breath as well as sweating, that's probably a good sign. If you were just sweating but you're just breathing normally, there's a good chance that you're not getting the full full experience,
Yeah,
full
exactly.
gains from that workout, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm one of those as well, that if I've gone and done so I'm training a little bit for strength and a little bit for fitness at the moment, so I'm trying to get into that middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go and do my working sets with weights and I don't feel I'm tired, my coach has put together 3 finishes for me that I can walk away from the gym and I can go, yeah, that sucked.
Yeah,
but in a good way, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're like, that sucks, but it was worth doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's like any workout, I think.
Yeah.
Any workout in the summer especially, I'm just like, oh, that sucked ass. But like, I'd rather train when I'm a little bit chillier and warm up rather than like when it's blistering heat and I'm like, oh my God, first rep down and I'm already dying.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So the last myth is quite a disputed one, and that is lifting weights makes women bulky. Because women, the context behind this is a lot of women don't want to lift weights because they're scared they're going to get muscly and look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, which I'll let you explain that one, mate.
Again, it's so much down to the individual, sounding Switzerland again, but women who train and they get muscular, they've done that for a reason that's self-serving them. They want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The average woman who goes and trains with weights, using resistance, they're not going to get bulky unless they are nutritionally putting themselves in an advantage and training enough to get that.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to training with resistance and going to the gym for a woman anyway, if you are a woman that doesn't want to train because you are at fear of getting bulky, think about the other 100 benefits that training in the gym is going to have for you. Unless you really do train specifically to get bulky, you're not going to. Unless you're some kind of superhuman. And that's cool if you are, by the way.
And you're on roids.
Yeah. But muscle density, heart health, bone health, brain health, thinking clearer, skin complexion, how confident you feel, putting yourself into a situation that may test you. Like the answers, there's no specific answer to that question, but it's a myth that gets said a lot and does put people off. But if you were to look at the percentage of people, or women specifically, that do get bulky from training in the gym, it's not that high.
Yeah.
And that's just from going to the gym and looking around.
Well, it's also from one massive perspective is that men have 17 times more testosterone than women. You know what I mean? Like the women that you'll see on stage in these competitions who look absolutely huge and almost manly, it's because the testosterone.
Yeah.
It's like there's like men and women are built differently. We have different, obviously, like we have, I think we've got like thicker elbows and stuff so we can push more weight, stuff like that. Like things like that will help as an advantage. I think men have a stronger upper body naturally and women have a stronger lower body naturally? Is that
I
think that might be correct. I'm not sure. I'm
getting
my science.
We'll roll with that. We'll roll with that.
Yeah, and I think it's mainly to do with men, because men were fighters and women carried the children, so they needed that strength in their legs to walk and carry stuff. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. I think that's just
it makes sense.
It makes logical sense.
On theory, that makes total sense.
Yeah, it does, mate. But mate, that is the end of our episode. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for this. But I'm curious, mate. What is next for you? Obviously, we've got your in-person podcast coming soon. You have your coaching program as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your coaching program?
Yeah, so I run Fitting In with the 100 HP film, 100 Days with Harry Purdy. It's the 100% community where I am helping my clients improve their mindset around weight loss and stopping people from doing, I'm just going to say it, stupid shit when it comes to losing body fat, because there are so many horrendous ways that people try and lose weight that aren't good for you. And recently as well, I've added in loads of things around helping you deal with anxiety, which is obviously coming from my experience and with the coaching that I've been fortunate to get as well. It's just added another string to my bow.
Nice.
In regards to the podcast, it's going face to face and just trying to see how far we can take this thing, man.
Nice.
Like there's no set, here's the amount of downloads I want to get, here's the amount of episodes I want to get. It's just let's see let's just see where this goes.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Nice. Is there any guests that you are kind of pushing to get on, like in a realistic time frame? Like obviously, like Paul Mort had Tyson Fury on as like episode 1 or something like that. Is there anyone that you're really pushing to get on?
Do you know there's 2 people that I've wrote down within my long-term visions that are definites. Frank Lampard.
Nice.
He's my idol. So Frank, if you're listening, come.
I would love Frank Lampard to listen to
Yeah,
this podcast.
imagine that.
Fucking hell.
And then the other one is James Smith.
Yes.
Because
yeah.
James Smith was, when it came to the weight loss side of my journey, was the guy that the online PT that explained calorie fucking deficit to me, was the one that I really related to, and he was one of the reasons why I did so well with my health journey from a weight loss perspective. And he's just an all-round top guy. I've met him in Bristol in 2018, and I swear down, I was so nervous to meet him.
Yeah.
And he, when like they say don't meet your heroes, he's probably one of my heroes, weirdly, because he's probably around the same age as me. But he just gave me a hug, got me back round his side of the desk and had a chat and was just class.
Yeah, it's just a sound dude.
Yeah. And I believe a discussion with James on my podcast would be class. So yeah.
I'm sure Paul could put you in touch with him, because Paul used to help him out originally.
With emails and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like when Sam was where James wasn't even that big.
Sam Smith.
Do you think? I wonder if that's where it was called, Sam Smith. Yeah. But. Yeah, mate. So listen, it's been wonderful having you on, mate. I'm so happy we actually arranged to do this, and we moved some stuff around, but we finally made it happen, and I'm glad that you made it up here. So, mate, where can people follow you, and what website can people find your coaching program on if they want to work with you?
So, Instagram, Harry Purdy Official. You can add me as a friend on Facebook, Harry Purdy, if you want to find out more about my program. Like I said, the 100% community, the 100% program with me is running all the time. So You can come and go as you please. But mate, I just want to say thank you for being an amazing host. It's been an incredible experience to do it face to face. The time has literally flown. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
Nice, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Kind of. It's always nice when, especially another podcaster, gives you the props. You know what I mean? So I'll see you on episode. I'll get you on episode 100 if I reach that far. I plan to reach it. We'll do episode 100. Actually, no, 69.
Oh, mate.
Episode 69, you got to come on for.
I'm back up in September, definitely, because I'm doing a Meta Ads Day with Mac. So maybe we could do a double episode where we just use this set up, record for the 100% podcast. Definitely. And record.
I'll probably be there. Is that with Mac?
Yeah.
Boy? Yeah. I'll probably be. Luke will probably send me along for that one as well, because ads is my thing at the minute. But yes, guys, be sure to go and follow Harry on all the social media links. It'll be on the bottom of the screen if you're watching this as a video. And as always, please leave us a 5-star review. No 4-star bullshit. It's 5 stars only. None of this 3 stars. None of this 4 stars because he went too far from the microphone or some shit. 5 stars because it means the world. And it just helps us make better content and encourages me on. So, guys, until the next episode, I will see you all very, very soon.